Aptly titled The Batman, Matt Reeves' 2022 adaptation features Robert Pattinson as the eponymous Batman. The rest of the main cast includes Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, Paul Dano as Riddler, Jeffrey Wright as Lieutenant James Gordon, and many others. Aside from directing, Reeves also serves as main writer for the movie, helped along by Peter Craig, who recently wrote the story for the acclaimed Top Gun Maverick. Composer Michael Giacchino of Lost fame also bears mention for creating the film's excellent soundtrack. Now, before moving on any further, keep in mind that this video contains quite a bit of spoilers. So if you have not seen the film yet and you do not want to get spoiled, it is probably better for you to stop watching right here. With that said, on we go. The events of the movie take place during the second year of Batman's activities, with the main plot centering around the efforts of Batman and Lieutenant James Gordon to elucidate the insidious political corruption of Gotham City. Riddler, who is played magnificently by Dano, acts as the film's chief antagonist. While he is undoubtedly the main villain of the story, Riddler perceives himself as both the victim and the savior of Gotham. He considers himself to be one of the true orphans of the city, those individuals who have been abandoned and left behind by the rich and corrupted. As a result, he seeks to unmask the true identity of Gotham, but he also wants revenge on those he believes to have wronged him. To achieve these goals, Riddler involves the Batman in his intrigues, leaving riddles in the form of gift cards at his crime scenes for the world's greatest detective to solve. Riddler firmly believes that Batman is akin to him, if only more skill at using his fists, and thus gives the Bat just enough information for him to find out who are the real puppet masters in the city. However, once the truth about Gotham's corruption is revealed, Batman realizes that Gotham's unmasking was never going to be enough for a psychopath like Riddler, and that there is one more step remaining in this madman's plan. Now, let me say that although it is not without flaws, The Batman has got to be one of the best written films featuring the Dark Knight. The scenario avoids a lot of pitfalls, such as retreading the Wayne's murder for the upteen time, or focusing on Batman's over-reliance on high-tech gadgets that too often save the day in previous adaptations. Reeves and Craig also choose to put an emphasis on detective work, which is refreshing to see after so many big-screen adaptations avoided that part of Batman's character despite it being integral to his comic book origins. The decision to pick Riddler as the prime antagonist for the movie is also a breath of fresh air, considering no other directors had attempted a serious take on the character before. Most of all, though, the writers are able to explore some pretty interesting themes throughout the movie. The one that fascinated me the most has to be the notion of masks and how they relate to one's true identity. You see, there is this constant idea running through the film that people or places might not be who or what they appear to be. Incidentally, the story starts on Halloween night, which is widely recognized as a holiday where everyone disguises themselves. This is genuinely highlighted during Bruce's first narrated sequence, as we are shown a large number of costume individuals in the streets of Gotham. Even Batman and the criminals seen in this wonderful sequence are wearing masks or makeup to cover or deform their faces. Everybody seems to be concealing their true identity. Following this train of thought, the two driving forces in the story, Batman and Riddler, are both mask-wearing, truth-seeking vigilantes. On the one hand, you have Riddler who obsesses over the thought of revealing the real Gotham City and its corrupted elements, while also wanting people to acknowledge him for who and what he really is. On the other hand, you have Bruce Wayne, who similarly wants to unveil the truth about Gotham, but who has got to do so while trying to build his own identity as the Batman and dealing with troubling revelation about his parents' true past. In the film, we are repeatedly shown that the two characters have quite a bit in common. They are both orphans, they both struggle with their identity, and they similarly consider themselves as righteous bringers of vengeance. Riddler even goes as far as saying that both of their masks allow them to be who they actually are. Story-wise, this parallel between the two men is what ultimately brings Bruce to reconsider his identity as Batman. Repeatedly referred to as vengeance by allies and enemies alike, Batman has an epiphany near the end of the movie when one of Riddler's followers claims that he himself is vengeance. This, along with previous events in the story, such as when Riddler tells Batman that he was inspired by his use of fear and violence, makes the Caped Crusader realize that he has to represent more than just vengeance and fear if he ever is to be better for the city than the ones he is fighting against. This epiphany is made evident in Bruce's final narration as he admits that
people need hope.
Gotham City can also be regarded as a character with a troubled identity in the story. Just like many of its citizens, it wears a mask that hides its true face. This mask is best embodied in the movie by the Renewal Project, a fund donated to the city by Bruce's late father Thomas Wayne, which was supposed to usher in a brighter future for Gotham, helping rebuild its obsolete infrastructure and take care of its orphans. Unfortunately, with Thomas's death, this project ended up simply enriching criminals, shady officials, and tainted politicians. This is the mask that Riddler wants to remove at all costs, the one that prompts his recurring "no more lies" line. However, Riddler only wants to reveal this truth so that he can then rightfully unleash his vengeance upon the city, and that at any cost. In contrast, Batman and Gordon are mainly interested in revealing the truth in hope of changing the city's identity for the better. They want a real change for the population, unlike Riddler and his followers, who are, in the end, only selfishly motivated. Aside from the thematic of identity, I also enjoy how the writers subtly touch on topics such as class struggle, domestic terrorism, and the media. As an example of the first topic, there are a few scenes in the film where Bruce, a billionaire, is confronted by the realities people of a lower class than him, Riddler, Catwoman, and many others, had to face in their lives. Realities that he did not have to deal with as the son of a very rich man. The irony during these scenes, though, is that his interlocutors are never aware of the fact that they are speaking to rich and powerful Bruce Wayne. They treat Batman positively because they do not think that he is part of the stratum of society that they loathe. The same is applicable for characters such as Penguin and Falcone, Except in their cases, it is reverse. They treat Bruce much more favorably than Batman because of his status and fortune. Keeping all of that in mind, Bruce Wayne still tends to transcend these class conflicts because he uses his fortune first and foremost to help the citizen of Gotham against the myriad of criminals and psychos. As for domestic terrorism and the media, the entire plotline centered on Riddler and his angry sociopathic group of livestream followers is an in-your-face parody of what an extremist group gaining access to weaponry en masse would probably look like today. Moreover, the fact that the news keep on showing Riddler's incredibly disturbing videos that were most likely posted on social media is a sharp reminder that nothing is ever too much when it comes to racking in the views for news corporations. There are a few more elements that I like about the story that deserve a mention here. First, there is Batman and Gordon's friendship. From the get-go, it is clear that these two trust each other very much, but we are never given the reasons why. It is left to the viewers to imagine their backstory, and I admit, I quite like that. Their chemistry is great, and the actors work so well together, unlike another pairing I will be discussing shortly. Next, there are the breadcrumbs of comedy that are scattered across the script. These bits help create some levity from the undeniably grim atmosphere of the film. Finally, I appreciate how the writers made this Batman feel rawer and more realistic. He takes punches aplenty, has trouble recovering from direct gunshots, and even has to occasionally wear sunglasses to shield his eyes from the sun because of his night owl lifestyle. Good stuff. Alright, now it is time to talk about what I find to be lacking with the writing. Let me come right out and say that the biggest weakness of the movie for me is the quote-unquote relationship between Batman and Catwoman. It feels extremely forced, with as little of a build-up as one can give to two characters to make their bond believable. I think it is a case of the writers wanting Bruce and Selina to appear on screen as a couple, but not knowing how to make it happen organically. Like, oh, Catwoman, she's sexy, right? Put her in a scene with Batman and they will instantly have chemistry. Right. Almost every scene in which they are alone has some of the worst lines in the film. I would love to ask the writers if this truncated romance was really necessary for the film's premise to succeed, and if they did want Selina's character to be introduced from the get-go in this Batman universe, at least spare us this terrible attempt at matching up the cat and the bat. Let the characters be themselves without the awkward flirting and have them grow naturally alongside each other for fricking sake. I think the only exchange they have in the movie that I like is when Batman stops Selina from shooting Falcone.
You don't have to pay with him. You paid enough.
If the characters' relationship had been believably built up, this scene would most likely have gotten me emotional. Instead, though, we have the stupid random kiss during the battle in the rafters and the dispassionate goodbye at the end of the film, which is, luckily, interrupted by Batman's true love, the bat signal. Beside the awful cat and bat romance, I also have another issue with the script. The inconsistent morals of Batman, who vehemently refuses to kill criminals and psychopaths, but yet apparently feels no remorse for being partly responsible for the deaths of multiple innocents in a crazy car chase sequence. I know the scene is spectacular, but how can Batman justify going through any of it? The worst part being that he would not have had to go through that ordeal if either him or Gordon would have been smart enough to tell the difference between el and la in Spanish. Wow, talk about stupid. There are also a few other problems with the writing, but to be fair, most of those qualify more as nitpicks, such as how did Batman survive a point-blank explosion in the church? Or how did he survive hitting a bridge with his wingsuit? Also, why would the DA guy talk about Maroni to a random girl? And why didn't the cops take off Batman's mask while he was unconscious? Well, I guess you can nitpick any movie out there, even the best ones of all time.
Fly, you fools! Fools.
Alright, enough about the writing. Let's move on to the directorial aspect of the film now. Without a doubt, the strongest elements of the Batman for me are its direction and cinematography. As acting director, Reeves does an excellent job bringing his own vision of Batman's universe to the big screen. He is helped along by cinematographer Greg Fraser, who has also recently worked on Dune and Star Wars Rogue One, two objectively gorgeous-looking movies. Together here, they create an unmistakably film noir atmosphere for the film, which I believe is heavily inspired by dark crime thrillers like Seven and Zodiac. This grim atmosphere is fully realized thanks to a few key directional choices. To begin with, there is the decision to avoid full-on day scenes. Indeed, most sequences in the movie take place during the night or at sunset. The few daytime scenes in the film are shot indoors or are dimmed by cloudy weather. Speaking of which, as is typical of the film noir genre, the movie also has its share of scenes shot in the rain. And God, am I a fan of rain scenes. It always seems to make everything more cinematic. There is also the poor condition of the city, which is equally instrumental in giving viewers the feeling that Batman's world is slowly rotting away. The lights in the streets are flickering, the back alleys are dark and decrepit, and even the church and Wayne's Manor's Gothic architecture feel bleak. Another significant choice made by the director is the contrasting use of red and black colors. You can look at literally over half of the scenes in the movie and you will find this juxtaposition. It gives a particular visual tone to the film that definitely sets it apart from previous Batman adaptations. My personal interpretation of this visual symbolism is that the two colors represent light and darkness as they collide in Gotham City. After all, most of the movie takes place in darkness, with even the protagonist of the story claiming that he is the shadows. Only near the conclusion of the film do we get to see a radiant dawn shortly after Batman leads survivors through darkness with the help of a bright red torchlight. What a shot! In those scenes, light seems to have overtaken darkness for the briefest of moments in the city of crime. The direction also shines during the movie's big set pieces. First, there is the breathtaking car chase scene in the rain with its incredible camera shots from the side of the cars and the windshields. Then there is the jaw-dropping dark corridor sequence in the Iceberg Lounge, where Batman fights off gun-wielding guards in pitch-black darkness, and in which we only get to see what is going on when one of the guns is fired. Beautiful. And there is also the long-awaited exchange between Batman and Riddler at Arkham, which I will admit almost rivals the iconic interrogation scene between Batman and Joker in The Dark Knight. Oh, and let's not forget the final showdown at Gotham Square Garden, where characters are literally flying all over the place, and which ends with my favorite shot of the entire movie. Reeves similarly does a remarkable job building up his own version of the Batman. Right from the beginning of the movie, he establishes the character in its world with a dramatic and downright shiver-inducing narrated sequence. This wonderful scene swiftly makes the viewers aware of Bruce's state of mind and of the impact Batman has on Gotham's average criminals. They fear him. They fear that he might appear out of the impenetrable shadows at any moment. One shot during the sequence actually resembles a horror movie monster reveal with that high-pitched violent sound creeping higher and higher, except the monster, Batman, does not actually appear. That moment gives me goosebumps. So well done. This motif of Batman as a monster comes back over and over during the film. For example, on multiple occasions, the viewers are given the perspective of side characters who suddenly hear loud, rhythmic footsteps coming from the darkness. This leads to the Dark Knight slowly emerging from deep within the shadows, his somber theme song playing in the background. These moments successfully convey the dread that these characters must feel. Another instance of this motif is found during the final battle in the Gotham Square Garden's rafters, when Batman suddenly jolts out of the mist to attack some of Riddler's men. There again, the violence hits like they would for a jump scare in a horror film. Even the Batmobile reveal plays out like a monster slowly waking up and getting ready to chase after Penguin. Poor guy. To be honest, I think Reeves might really be a fan of monster movies. I approve. Lastly, there are all of these little moments Reeves throws in for Batman fans, such as the Caped Crusader looking like he is upside down, comparable to a bat, or Oswald getting to walk like a penguin, or Riddler leaving question marks everywhere he goes, even in his cup of coffee. That one is funny. There is even a moment early on in the movie where Gordon looks like he has bat ears on his forehead. I don't know if this one was intentionally done or not though. Oh, and before I forget, am I the only one who noticed Riddler in a window just before Bruce chases after Selina? Well played there, Mr. Reeves. What about the actors in the film though? Do they stand up to the quality of the direction? Well, in my honest opinion, the majority of the actors in the film are great. Although there is not an out-of-this-world performance in here, like Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight, the actors do deliver for the most part. The standouts for me are Paul Dano and Andy Serkis. They are definitely a notch above the rest of the cast. Despite not having much screen time, Serkis plays the caring, kind, gentleman-like father figure perfectly. His Oscar-worthy moment has to be the hospital scene where he emotionally lays out the truth about Thomas Wayne to Bruce. Very, very good acting from Smeagol. Meanwhile, Dano has a much bigger role to play in the story, and he hits it out of the ballpark. I mentioned before that nobody pulls a Heath Ledger in the Batman, but if anyone comes close to it, it is Dano. The man brings his own brand of crazy to the character of Riddler, which, let's be fair, has mainly been depicted as an eccentric genius in previous Batman live-action adaptations. In this movie, however, Riddler is strangely reminiscent of the Zodiac Killer. He has a fondness for dark humor, which both Batman and Gordon never fail to point out, and he is pretty much played out as a mastermind serial killer. I will admit that seeing Dano shine in this role is not surprising for me, considering he seems to have an affinity with playing nut jobs. Think of There Will Be Blood, Prisoners, 12 Years a Slave, and so on. If the man is nominated for an Oscar, it will be for the incredible scene with Pattinson's Batman at Arkham Asylum. The acting range Dano displays throughout that sequence is jaw-dropping.
Oh, no, 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 no! Nobody! No!
He reveals himself to be even more unhinged than Ledger's Joker. He is like a crazy genius child in the body of an adult man. Either way, Dano makes it clear that his broken character is holding on to a lot of anger and pain. Hopefully, we get to see him return in the sequels. Apart from Dano and Serkis, there are also good things to be said about Jeffrey Wright, John Turturro, and Colin Farrell. They all bring something special to their characters. For example, Wright's Gordon carries a great sense of introverted solemnity that I had yet to see in the character of Gordon. That is not to say that this Gordon never makes me laugh. The man's deadpan humor is a highlight for sure.
I'll put a lot of heat on you. Oh, you punched me in the face.
Speaking of comedy, Turturro plays Falcone amazingly. A mix between frightening and hilarious. He has some of the best one-liners in the movie, and his delivery is excellent.
Oh, so you're a big man now, huh?
Maybe I am.
Really, Oz? Because to me, you're always just a gimp.
He brings gravitas to a character that is too often little more than a side player in Batman's world. Lastly, there is Farrell's Penguin. The well-known actor's screen time is definitely limited in this film, but this does not stop him from playing the hell out of the character.
There's only one problem with your little scenario, okay? I ain't no rat! You got any idea what comment Falcone will do to me? Heard this kind of talk? No.
With any luck, he will get more time to shine in the next movies. Now, on to the less impressive performances in the Batman. Although Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz are not terrible here, I am underwhelmed by their portrayal of Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle. The fact that they have little, if any, chemistry with each other does not help. But even as single entities, they are average. I had no high expectations for Kravitz, as I had only seen her once before in a small role in Mad Max Fury Road. Great movie, by the way. But her performance still leaves me unimpressed. She often seems wooden and cold, traits I would definitely not associate with the character of Catwoman. The lackluster writing for a character definitely does not help, however her acting alone is simply not good enough for me. While my expectations were inexistent for Kravitz, I was truly hoping for Pattinson to knock it out of the park as the Caped Crusader. After all, ever since his dreary and forgettable performance as Edward Cullen in Twilight, the British actor had turned a corner and been quite impressive in a few recent independent films, including Good Time and The Lighthouse, both of which I have enjoyed very much. For this reason, his interpretation of Bruce Wayne is disappointing for me. Sure, he has some good line delivery as Batman, but without the mask, he feels flat and uninspired. This is best encapsulated in the scene at the hospital where Andy Serkis delivers so much believable emotion, and besides him, Pattinson is having such a very hard time keeping up with this masterclass in acting. With those weaker performances in mind, the Batman's ensemble cast still deserves major props for its work overall. The acting is definitely not a weakness of the movie. If the writing had been better in certain aspects, it is plausible to believe that even Pattinson and Kravitz could have looked better, and consequently, little would have really been worthy of criticism acting-wise. Let's talk music now. There can be no good Batman movie without a fantastic soundtrack. And on that front, Michael Giacchino had his work cut out for him, having to stand up to composers like Hans Zimmer, Danny Elfman, and all of the others. Well, as far as Batman's main theme is concerned, I can say without a doubt that Elfman's iconic track from 1989's Batman still reigns supreme. It's not to say that Giacchino's It's Raining Vengeance theme song is not impressive though. I enjoy it quite a lot, especially those sections where the bells come in or the violins start hissing like in a horror film. The track definitely helps convey the aforementioned notion that Batman is almost monster-like for Gotham City's criminals. So while it does not outshine Elfman's Batman theme, it is definitely among my favorites. The rest of the soundtrack is just as good. It is a blend of mysterious film noir and spine-chilling horror music. Once more, a connection between this movie and Seven can be drawn here, as both movies' soundtracks have quite a bit in common. However, in the Batman, there is also this interesting emphasis put on the famous Ave Maria composition by Charles Gounod. Not only is the song played often in the movie, but its underlying beats are heard in other musical pieces from the soundtrack, starting with Riddler's theme. Riddler himself sings the song mockingly to Batman in their confrontation inside Arkham. I believe this musical choice was made to fit with Riddler's past, identity, and motivations. He was a neglected orphan desperately seeking salvation from someone, anyone. Eventually, he gave up on that hope and became this savior he was looking for, the one that would save him and the other true orphans from the masked and monstrous Gotham City. Therefore, when he sings Ave Maria to Batman in Arkham, he is not just mocking him, but also gratifyingly baiting in his own sense of righteousness. In his mind, justice is about to finally be done. As a last point concerning the soundtrack, I would like to discuss Reeves' decision to have Nirvana's Something in the Way be such a pivotal song in the film. It specifically plays during both of Bruce Wayne's long monologues that are actually excerpts from his diary. In the song, singer Kurt Cobain talks about how something stands in the way of what he wants to become. Considering director Matt Reeves has said on multiple occasions that he drew inspiration from Cobain for his depiction of this Bruce Wayne, it is clear that there is a bridge, no pun intended, to be made between the two individuals. In the case of Bruce, it seems like what is standing in the way of who he wants to become is the trauma of the death of his parents. Bruce has yet to become the affable billionaire playboy that everyone is familiar with. Instead, he is portrayed as a depressed recluse. The song serves as our introduction to this hermit-like Bruce, but it also fittingly acts as background to his epiphany at the conclusion of the film. Is something still standing in Bruce's way? I guess we'll find out in the next movie.
We are now interrupting this review to share with you some very important information. Did you all know that the crazy Batmobile that we get to see in the movie is actually a custom-made electric car? Yes! Director Matt Reeves wanted the Batmobile reveal to be intimidating, to have the iconic car look and sound like a horror movie monster. To achieve this, they built an elaborate front for the automobile they called the furnace. This furnace is what makes it look like the Batmobile has blue flames coming from its roaring engine, as if it was breathing fire. Reeves' inspiration for this was Stephen King's novel Christine, which is a story about a possessed car killing people. This Batman adaptation really has quite a lot of horror vibes.
So, where does this movie rank among all of the Batman films out there? Having seen most of them by now, I can honestly say that it is one of the best. The direction and cinematography alone put it pretty high on the list. Reeves' vision is strong and well realized, with the aforementioned blending of film noir and horror genres, creating a grim and eerie atmosphere throughout. Overall, the writing is also really good. The story is meticulously constructed, and the characters, as well as the world they live in, are gripping. There are unquestionably some cringe-inducing lines, and the movie could have done without that forced romance, but to be fair, these issues do not harm the script too much. As for the actors, most of the main cast are brilliant, particularly Paul Dano as Riddler, who is the highlight of the film. Obviously, I would have wanted a top-notch performance by Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz, but on that front, I am still trying to be hopeful for the next two movies. Lastly, the soundtrack is fantastic, and the costume and makeup departments did an incredible job. Any of you recognize Colin Farrell? Because it took me a little while to realize it was him. Taking all of that into consideration, my final grade for the film is an A-. Batman movie adaptations-wise, I would personally put it below The Dark Knight, but above pretty much everything else. I know some people will say that Tim Burton's 1989 Batman equally deserves to be up there, but I would disagree. I think there is a lot of nostalgia tied in with the love toward that film. And well, Jack Nicholson is in it, of course. But in my mind, there is no doubt that the Batman is just on another level when it comes to the directing and even the writing. Because of this, I am excited to see where Reeves and his team will take the story and its characters next. What about you guys and girls? Are you eager to see where this story will go? Did you also love the movie? And where would you put the film on your Batman movies list? Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, as always, a big thank you for watching. I love working on these videos and I cannot wait to make more. Until then, peace and stay out of the shadows. I'm Batman.